All right, back by popular demand. I'm not lying to you, Brooks. I think you are the most requested guest we've ever had on this show. Brooks Austin, the film guy over at Bulldogs on SI. How's it going, buddy?
It's going good, Michael. I got to be honest. I watch you guys sparingly. I'm not like a religious watcher, so I don't know if that's something that you tell every single reoccurring guest. And if so, that's fine. I'm going to ignore the possibility that is a thing. So hopefully that's just a genuine compliment for your boy. That's awesome, though. I'm glad to be back on here with you.
No, you'll see. I'll post this. You'll see in the comments. They'll be like my two favorite YouTubers connecting at once.
Yeah.
So look forward to that. But huge game. So that's why I wanted to reach out to you. But before we get to that, have you ever seen Georgia under Kirby Smart get whipped physically and on the line of scrimmage like they did against Ole Miss? How big of a shock was that?
I think my co-host Jonathan said it best on Saturday coming home. I felt a lot like 2017 Auburn on the road. They got mollywopped by Auburn in 2017 in Jordan-Hare, and then saw them again in the SEC championship game, and it was like two totally different football teams. That's kind of what that felt like. But no, you're right. As long as I've been covering this football team since March of 2019, I haven't seen them really like physically manhandled at the line of scrimmage like that by anybody not named Alabama. I think Alabama in last year's SEC championship game had one of these moments where they kind of rolled the interior of that defensive line, but it was Alabama's offensive line dominating Georgia's defensive line. It's been a real long time since I've seen a defensive line dominate Georgia's offensive line, and that be the reason that football team won the football game. But that was what happened last Saturday night. If you watched that game and came away with any other analysis point other than Georgia's offensive line got whipped today, you had the wrong analysis point. That's what it was. It changed the entire game. Ole Miss's defensive front was tremendously dominant in that game.
And then, is that something that can be corrected in a week? I know Kirby has pointed out, well, that was on the road, hostile environment. We're going to be playing in front of our great fans. So some of that will be lessened. But I would argue Tennessee may have a better defensive front than Ole Miss. So is that something that can be corrected?
Yeah, so when I was watching Tennessee last night on film, and we're about to have a film breakdown for our channel over here on the Film Guy Network on Tennessee's offense and defense, when I watch Ole Miss's defense, schematically and stylistically, they are not necessarily a good matchup for Georgia. They like to stunt a lot on angles. They like to cause a lot of havoc. And it basically results to the offense having to run around that defensive line. And if you can run east to west really, really well, and you have those types of plays in your playbook, you're going to have success running the football against Ole Miss. But if you don't, you're going to struggle. And that's what Georgia has. They don't have a run around you offensive game plan, right? They're more staying on track, doing inside zone type of systems where they're going to move you against your will if you're a gap sound defense. And that's what Tennessee more stylistically is, right? They like to play a traditional 4-down front, like to let James Pierce and those guys win their one-on-one battles. They don't necessarily like to do a lot of movement or crazy stuff until 3rd down. So I think the run game style is a little bit more conducive to Georgia's skill set. But when you're talking about Tennessee has a really, really good defensive line and they could create problems, you're 100% correct, because even when stylistically it's a bad matchup for Georgia, they have shown this year that their offensive line is A, banged up, but B, not necessarily par for the course for what Georgia historically is.
Do you put any stock into, we all know Kirby, master manipulator, 7-5, all that garbage, and certainly the Texas game clearly after whipping Texas and Austin, you could see how ticked off he was. I'll put it that way. That people were picking against him, and not that everybody's picking against Georgia this week, but we just had the playoff reveal last night. Yeah. Georgia's out, Tennessee's in. I mean, the message has got to be simple, right? Whip Tennessee's ass, we're right back in it. How much does that help Georgia this week, you think?
I mean, I think Kirby has shown a history of certainly being able to pull on to the emotional strings of his football players, particularly right before they walk out of that tunnel. But I personally, Michael, think there's so much to clean up in terms of just doing the right thing, doing the little things right on this football team. that they need a lot more than just rah-rah sis boom boss speeches this week. Okay. They need to go back to the fundamentals. They need to make sure that they can block. They need to make sure that they can tackle. They need to make sure that they can get simple things like checks at the line of scrimmage, right? These like little things that Georgia has always just checked off immediately that you just know that they're going to do. And it's why they're so great. And football is this. Like, I think football can be made complex and people can think it's all about the fancy schematics and stuff like that. But in reality, you talk to any coach, you talk to any man that plays this game, and it comes down to blocking and tackling. And last Saturday, they were not very good at blocking. So they got to get much better at that this week. And that's what you focus on. And that's what you hone in on, right? And they had pre-snap penalties last week. And they had, guys jumping up and down with away teams last week after a loss. It's just like a bunch of little things that they need to focus on far more than, hey, guys, the world's doubting us. No shit, the world's doubting you. You've shown them reasons to doubt you. Let's go clean up those reasons that people are doubting us right now.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of doubting, man, what in the world is going on with Carson Beck, who, I mean, basically all season he's at times looked pretty shaky, and certainly the last week was on a different level. I mean, I don't know what. Can you explain what is wrong with Carson Beck here?
Yeah, so the Ole Miss game, man, like having been there, having rewatched the tape several times, I don't know of a quarterback not named like a healthy Jalen Milroe or like a prime Mike Vick that would have been okay in that pocket. That pocket was collapsing instantaneously. So I take that Ole Miss game and I'll look at it and I say, it's simple. You couldn't block them. So if I can't run the football and I can't protect, what quarterback's going to have success, right, in that particular football game? The Florida football game, man, he made very uncharacteristic bad decisions with the football. And I call them WTF moments as a quarterback, right? And those are the ones we want to avoid, where you're throwing balls into double coverage or you're throwing balls late into your progression. Moments of complete lack of security with the football. Those are moments that we can't have. And he does have 11 interceptions this year. I think it's 11, maybe 12 at this point. He's got a bunch of interceptions. But to be honest with you, man, like when I went through them and we did on our channel, we went through every single Carson Beck interception going into that Ole Miss football game. And I would say 60% of them were like either the wide receivers busting routes or the ball's tipped at the line of scrimmage, or there's a reason to explain it away, not excuse it away, but explain it away. And then there were like 4 or 5 bad decisions. He didn't have any of those bad decisions against Ole Miss, man. The one turnover was another tipped pass. So like, I don't blame the Ole Miss game on him. I do look at some of his other decision making, and I'm like, dude, that's not you. That's not why you are you. By the way, you're Carson Beck, and if you play on Sundays for a long, long time, it's because you always made the right decision. You never made the wrong ones, and he's made several wrong ones this year. And if he can go about cleaning that up, he'll be fine. But I don't know of anybody that was having success last Saturday night with Princely Umar-Milan getting home in seemingly less than 2 seconds. I don't know who's going to do well in that situation.
Right. And a lot of the focus into this matchup is on Georgia, and on the Tennessee side, I think most people are focusing on Nico, whether he plays or doesn't. But to me, Brooks, this game is going to come down to, like it basically does every time with Josh Heupel, and particularly in this game against Georgia, it's going to come down to whether Tennessee can run the football. Yep. And they have never been able to run on Kirby's defense. Can they? Do you think they could do it this year? Or is, can Georgia defense stop them, basically, I guess is the question.
Michael, what's been crazy is because I've been watching Tennessee for the last several weeks. I mean, I've been paying attention to them all year on film. I have not seen this many football teams crowd the box in attempting to stop the run against Tennessee ever. Like, and it's because they can't hit their deep shots. But normally when teams are like, all right, screw it, we're just going to play cover 0. We're going to leave a bunch of one-on-ones out here, outside the numbers, and we're just going to die today stopping the run. Normally they die. Normally Tennessee's hitting 65-yard bombs on them, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, we're going to give up on stopping the run with all these dedicated bodies, and we're going to have to force ourselves to stopping the run with a lesser box count. What's really concerning if you're a Tennessee fan going into this football game is that teams are selling out to stop the run against you this year because they can, because you can't hit these deep shots. But here's what's really terrifying. Georgia has never had to stop or sell out to stop the run against you, ever. They never have, because they've always been able to stop the run with lesser counts. So now they have, or at least going into this football game, even with Nico healthy, teams have shown you they're not scared of your passing game. So Georgia has never had to be scared of your passing game because they didn't have to dedicate the extra bodies to the box. And now you don't have a passing game that's willing to be scared of. So when Georgia doesn't have the ability to stop the run with lesser counts, now they're going to be afforded the ability to load the box and maybe not necessarily be so fearful, just like everybody else. I mean, Mississippi State didn't have a lot of success. They got beat behind them, but Mississippi State had the same game plan. Alabama had the same game plan. Florida had the same game plan. We're going to sell out to stop the run. If you guys beat us in the pass game today, you're going to beat us. And a couple of those teams took losses. Florida took one in overtime. Alabama took one. And Mississippi State took one, right? They all lost, but they all made that offense struggle for 4 quarters, or at least show signs of struggling during times of those 4 quarters.
Mm-hmm. Can you ever recall a schedule quite like this for Georgia? I mean, it's a damn gauntlet. No. Not only is it a gauntlet, but we're here November 13th. They've only had 3 home games. Is it possible that maybe they're being undervalued just because it's like they're already in the playoff. Every week's a damn near playoff game for Georgia.
Yeah, Michael, I mean, the whole offseason, I feel like all the schedule talk, if you will, all the schedule talk revolved around the gauntlet that Florida's got. Oh, my God. How will anybody ever survive this Florida schedule? Michael, Georgia has surpassed Florida at this point in the year in strength of schedule. So that schedule that we looked at preseason for Florida, and it was tough, don't get me wrong, Georgia's has already surpassed that. Georgia's played a tougher schedule and will, moving forward, play a tougher schedule overall than what we thought was the hardest schedule in college football history going into this season. So, yeah, man, I mean, it's been talked about ad nauseum. Everyone knows it. You can look at it and see it. But I'm like you. I wonder if the College Football Playoff Committee really, truly believes what we all look at in terms of the strength of schedule, because it ain't even close. There ain't nobody in this college football playoff discussion that's got a schedule and a gauntlet like Georgia's got.
Yeah. All right, last thing for you, Brooks. Really appreciate your time. If Georgia wins this game, why? If Tennessee wins it, why? What are the keys to each team winning it?
Yeah, so if Tennessee wins it, it's because they won the explosive battle. I think if Georgia's offensive game plan, and you're going to see it when you go watch our film study of Tennessee, it's not just that Tennessee's got a great defensive line and they create a lot of pressure and they create a lot of havoc, but their secondary does such a tremendous job of disguising coverage that they create a certain level of confusion, or at least an attempt at confirmation of coverage from the quarterback. So you see a lot of quarterbacks calling, downset hut. They get the football against Tennessee, and then they're clicking through their reads with a lot of uncertainty. It's because the picture's changing on them. So the bottom line, you either have to be able to run the football against Tennessee, or you have to be able to protect, or more than likely a combination of both. And I think that's what it boils down to for Georgia in this football game. You got to be able to protect, and for Tennessee, you got to be able to hit your explosives.
All right, Brooks, before you go, can you tell my audience how can they follow you and how can they find the show?
Yeah, I know you got a big Twitter following, Michael. You can follow me at Brooks Austin BA on Twitter, and you can just search The Film Guy over on Twitter or YouTube, and you'll find us as well. I appreciate you for having me back on, brother. And I'm glad to know that YouTube's analytics don't lie, because I see common shows right there. It's that guy that we shall not mention that wears that white shirt, and then it's you, the SEC podcast. So, yeah, glad to know that them YouTube algorithms ain't capping, as the kids would say.